Okay, so let's continue with the examples. Here I have written kingdom, phylum or division, and class, order, family, genus and species, and these are the examples we have taken, and under that, corresponding to each of the category or the taxonomic category, we have written the examples here. Okay, now when we see man here, we can see that the genus and species, Homo sapiens, we are familiar with this, and also please stress that the first letter is always in the lower case, that is, it is the the small letter, and this will hold the capital letter. The other point is that, of course, that we underline them, just recalling the binomial nomenclature along with these examples. Just whenever you're writing, even if it's for practice or if it just even if you're writing for absolutely no reason, please try to keep the binomial nomenclature in mind so that it becomes a habit to you and you can inculcate it very easily. Now next, there isn't much to explain here, but just 2 to 3 tricks I'd like to mention is how to remember this order. I'll just try and give a mnemonic for this: kingdom, phylum or division, class, order, family, genus and species. There's just one mnemonic: some girls from our class play kabaddi. So if this helps, keep it in mind, write it down. But if you are able to remember it with your own mnemonic, or if you're comfortable with remembering it without any mnemonic, then go ahead. Whichever is comfortable for you, follow that. Just if you want it again, some girls from our class play kabaddi. Okay, this helped me personally. So I'll just show one more small example here, or a pattern that I have noticed is here. This mango and wheat here we have ACA right here. ACA, right? ACA. Like at the end, it's like an ACA comes, right? Anacardi ACA, Poaca. Now when we come to order here, you have sapindales, poales, the ales part is coming here. This is not necessarily a very generalized trait to remember, but if you ever get confused, is it poales or poaceae, or is it sapindales and anacardiaceae? Which order is it exactly? Just remember the ACA part is for the family and the ALs part is for the order. But this example of poesy, it will come ahead in another chapter in class 11 biology itself. But yeah, if you are confused right now in the beginning as to whether poels is the family or poaceae is the order, like you're messed up with that, just remember ALs is for order, OACA, the OACA part is for the family. Okay, and some important things is this. Here the phylum, these are all dealt in particular in the coming chapters. Just be familiar with these phrases now itself, so that when you come across them later, it's not like a surprise for you. Insects, right? The insects, this is an insect. It has to do with arthropoda phylum, and these are divisions. For these two, it is not phylum, it is division. And they come under angiospermae, and angiospermae is for the flowering plants. And here you have chordata. I mentioned that the one with the dorsal hollow neural system and has the presence of a notochord, and they come under the chordata phylum. Remember that. Mammalia, please remember some terms, like not, you don't have to by heart the order and all that. It would be good if you did, but remember some main terms like here. And these have appeared many times in other contexts too, right? So it will help us out. Dicotyledone, monocotyledone. We'll get to know why mango is dicot and why wheat is monocot in the coming chapters. Next, one last point is, let us keep this part always in mind. Let this always be in your mind, because they can always, instead of framing the question simply, like say there's a question that has to do with wheat, like some feature of wheat, how the reproduction in wheat goes on. Instead they might just ask, right, this feature of triticum aestivum. So you must be familiar that triticum aestivum is wheat, and they have mentioned it in the textbook. So it's better if you remember this. Triticum aestivum is for the wheat, Mangifera indica is for mango, Musca domestica is for housefly, and Homo sapiens is for man. And they might not ask directly like what is the family or of a housefly. This is a rare question, but sort of a familiar question they might ask using these topics is that match the following. They'll do one thing. They'll just put many families like these are orders, right? They'll put all these orders together, and then on the other side they'll put these examples. So you have to match which order is for which example, or they might just give some random things from here everywhere, and they might give primata, insecta, angiosperma, and plantae, and they'll give kingdom, phylum, class, and order as the other side. So you have to match. Primata is for order, insecta is for class, angiosperma is for phylum or division, and plantae is for kingdom. So they can ask in match the following, and please don't get confused there. And one last thing is that people get confused with order and family. Write these examples down again and again so that you don't end up confusing them in the end. So now we have been dealing with this term, the living world, and everything that, but most of the thing that we have dealt with has to do with classification, right? Or characterization, or grouping things, or segregating things so that we understand them better. Now let us focus on the term living, because now we are focused on the term world, right? Mostly, let us focus on the term living. Now, how to know if an object is living or not? Now, by object, don't assume that I mean non-living. I'm using the term object for everything in this universe. You, me, non-living to living, everything. Okay, so how do I get to know that something is living? Now, we are dealing with different criteria here, like growth, reproduction, and many more points, but we'll go step by step. Firstly, we'll deal with growth. Now, growth, of course, is a characteristic of the living organism. Yes, but is it necessarily the defining feature? No, right? So, I mentioned that growth is a characteristic. What does characteristic mean again? A feature, like a part, like how we exhibit ourselves. Now, is it a characteristic of a living organism? Yes, of course. Each and every one of us grows, right? Like say by height, or even at the cell level, the cell has some growth mechanisms, right? The cell divides, and in plant, the cell division is continuous throughout life. In plant, it is continuous, but in animals, it has a time limit, or it is up to a certain time. Okay. Now, even the cell division, because when we talk about growth, it has to happen from the basic level to the higher level, right? So when we start with the cell, that cell has to grow. Just say something happens to it, some damage occurs to it, then it will divide so that it can regenerate itself to correct itself, or because it's damaged, right? It will divide itself so that it can heal itself, in this normal words. Now, once we are understanding this, it's very obvious that it is a characteristic, right? We proved that. But is it a defining feature? Now, what does a defining feature mean? Is this growth exclusive to living? No, right? It's not like only living beings can grow. Even non-living beings can grow. Example, say you go to a hilly area or a mountain, then these mountains are not constant in size. They can either grow or they can either shrink also. Now, how they can shrink? We have the process of weathering, and we have the seasonal changes, or there might be a natural calamity by which the mountain or any boulder or any form, earth form, it can just fall down, right? Or how does it build up? Because of the sand deposits, or soil deposits, or rock deposits, or lava deposits, because the transported by air, wind, water, so many other means that has to do with the environment. But it does make it clear that this is not at all exclusive. Here they are growing, but are mountains living creatures? No, they're not. They're non-living. So by this we can conclude that growth is not a defining feature for living organisms. Okay. Now, in this topic, just remember few things. They have mentioned here that in plants the cell division keeps on going on. It is continuous. But in animals, it is not so. So remember this difference. They can just ask this in assertion and reasoning, which is false, or statement based questions they can ask that way. And please remember, yes, it is a characteristic, but no, it is not a defining feature. Why? Yes, living organisms, we grow, but so do non-living organisms, at least some of them, okay, which cannot be excluded. So now, if this is clear, let's move on to the next criteria, reproduction.